Before I left to go on my mission, some of the people I worked with says, "Well, you go on your mission. What are you going to do when you get back?" I says, "When I get back, I'm going to get married and get on with life." Uh, while I was on the first summer I was out on my mission, we went and visited another branch. I can't even remember the name of the branch now, but anyway, the one that was, it was either the branch president or one of them, he owned a jewelry store. And the other missionary says, he gives you a good deal on rings. You can just start, give him a little money and he'll pick out the rings and he'll set them aside. And when you get through, I can come in and pick up the rings. So I said, all right. So I went in his jewelry store and picked out a set of rings, and out of my meager missionary allowance, I decided that instead of going to a show or doing, I'd give them $5 or $10 and set the rings aside. So I worked with that. So just before I come home, I went out there and picked up the rings and had them with me. But in the time that we were riding, and we decided, if things worked out, we could possibly make it work. And during the week we were together, I says, this thing, if we work hard at it, we can make it work. I loved her, and so what else was there to do? But the problem was the distance. So she lived in Holiday and I lived in Rigby. I says, this ain't gonna work very good. If we're gonna make it. So I says, well, if she'll marry me, I'm gonna start making ways for it. So I give her a ring and she accepted it. And then she wanted to wait till June. I said, well, that's okay, but then when I got home and so forth, then I got the farm, and I says, well, in the farming situation, I says, June is a tough time to get away because it's the end of May, you've got the grain that you got to get in, and then you've got to get the potatoes in. And I says, when it's time to plant potatoes, you plant potatoes because you can't take a week off and just let them sit. So I says, if we're going to get married, I need to get married earlier, or else we'll have to set it back towards fall when we got time in the farm work. So she relented and says, well, let's get married. And so we set it back into April, and then we decided to do it on the 25th of March. Was it too fast? Well, to a lot of people, that was pretty fast. We hadn't had time to do a lot of courting together, but we had, as far as I was concerned, we had discovered many of the interests and so forth in our letter writing for a year and a half. So it wasn't like we wasn't acquainted with how each other felt. We even had one of my distant relatives says, well, they got married awful quick. What is she, pregnant? Well, I could have smacked them up the side of the head, but that's the way they felt. They could feel that way. But yeah, it was fast, but we've been together 60 years plus. So who's right and who's wrong? My dreams of becoming a father, I think actually went back many years. When we lived on the farm there, my mother became pregnant, but they never told us. In those days, they didn't tell you anything till the baby was born or anything else. But we knew very, because that was, I think, in 1934. I think that was the year that she had the baby. But we was looking so much, us kids was looking so forward to having a baby in the family. And when the baby died, it was just like they tore your heart right out of your chest because of that. 2 years later, she was pregnant again, and we had great hopes. And then that one died in her womb, at least a month or 6 weeks before she was supposed to have it. So that was another blow to it. And so it says the thing that I am most desirable is to become a father. And if I can't have a brother or sister, then I'll have my own family. So I was very anxious. And of course, after we got married, then Noreen didn't get pregnant for about 4 or 5 months after that. But we had Christy, and that was great. And then 11 months later, we had Lynn. And so the family come along pretty fast. And I appreciated every one of them, and hoped that I could be the kind of a father would teach them and lead them the way that they should be taught. And so I always accepted callings in the church, tried to do them, and tried to do the things that I was supposed to do. And somewhere I lay most of the growing up of the kids on my sweet wife, because I was so active in a lot of the church things and in work that it was a lot of it was left on her to do. And but nevertheless, as our families come about, we have five children who are very active in the church. There's been any number of occasions when all 5 of our children are with us in the temple all at the same time. And there's just nothing like that in the feeling of when you're in the celestial room and all 5 of your children are there. And as time went on, then some of the grandchildren started coming, and then they were in there with us. So that's been the greatest satisfaction and thrill of being a father, is to, although I've never been successful financially to any great degree, but we do have a good family, and to me that's much more important to the eternities, is to have a good family than to have a big bank account that you have to leave behind.